Welcome to this watch review video. I will be giving a detailed hands-on review of my Cartier Ronde Croisière de Cartier WSRN 0032. It's a premium automatic dress watch that is oozing that effortless Cartier style. I'll cover my purchase, design and build quality, on-wrist experience, in-collection competition, value for money, and conclusions, and a bit of this and a bit of that. If I come over a bit French, a bit posh, just allow me, darling. Cartier isn't it, darling? If you're new to the channel, I unbox and review my own watches. I'm making a concerted effort to do it with a bit more consideration and show my personal experience with my watches from various angles. I will also fiddle with a shiny blue crown nipple for those who are into that kind of thing. Stay tuned. I'm a right old Francophile, cheese-loving, little bit of wine-loving, less so in these older years, Paris-loving, Marseille-loving. You probably won't get murdered, darling. Don't worry about it. I like a bit of Frenchness in my life, so Cartier was always going to be in the collection at some point. C'est la vie. I wasn't always into the posher watches from the start. I developed slowly but gathered speed after I bought my Zenith Synopsis in late 2022. I think my interest in Cartier developed early 2023. I was looking at tanks, but from there I got drawn into Cartier in general. They're amazing complications and they seem to love creating crazy timepieces. They've got that haute horloge going on. So after a bit of research on Chrono 24, as you do, I decided tank wasn't for me because my skinny wrist doesn't want to be seen as skinny, wants to pretend to not be skinny, so a tank doesn't suit me. Then in July 2023, in an English summer haze, they do exist, I was led to a private ad in Singapore on Chrono 24. Had a good chat with the guy. Seemed like a decent fellow, sent me more photos, and I was clear on what I was getting. It was my first international private purchase, so the butt cheeks were a bit clenched, but using Chrono 24 escrow system is a comfort. I don't know if I used a credit card, but that would add to comfort as well. But anyway, pulled the trigger. After some mild haggling, got it down to £2,400-ish. I did have to pay tax on top of that, so it came out to around 8,000.
How much?
Up to 2,800 and something, which is a reasonably good deal. It seemed like so in the middle of the night. I'm happy with it. RRP is 4,450. There weren't many for sale and there still aren't, so I think I'd only lose a few £100 if I sold it now. On to the design and build quality. In the advertising spiel, Cartier say that they have an obsession for pure lines, precise shapes, and precious details. That was bang on. They obviously know what they're doing. Their design language is iconic. It's been 100 years and more of the same thing that works a treat. This watch is all about style. It's all about the dial. But that doesn't mean it isn't built like a tank. It is in effect a round fat tank. It's classic Cartier, a sleek package that still manages to scream, "Look at me, I'm a Cartier." I guess it's what we love about them. It is a kind of universal language, isn't it? The language of love. It is delicate, but it feels solid. The crown is a bit fiddly, but it works. It's tactile, and it's just a really charming watch. The dial then is a star of the show with those big old Roman numerals done as only Cartier can. They follow the case and the internal hour track in an equidistant kind of uniform way. That symmetry and that flow, it's very pleasing to the eye. I'm sure they've done some science on it and they've figured it out. It's magnifique. Magnifique is what it is. As you may or may not know, many Cartier dials include that rail track to allow for easy time telling. It marks the hours and the minutes and it's very useful on rectangular tank watches. But in general, it's very functional and it's a nice design feature. Adds a bit of detail to the dial as it runs parallel to the bottom of the hour markers. It just adds to the flow and increases legibility. The case is low profile and sleek. It measures 43 millimeters from lug to lug, which is a really perfect size for me. The short lugs keep the package tight. I usually like to see something extra on the dial, applied logo, applied markers, even on a dress watch. And this is the only watch I've got, I think, that has a very flush, clean finish on the dial. There's no frame around the date window. There's no applied logo, no nothing. And it works really well. Obviously, it's part of the way Cartier do things. Clean, concise, precise, stylish. And it just works. So while it is simple, the blued hands and the crown, they add a bit of a flourish. And it doesn't need anything more. It's not trying to impress anyone, but it will by default. The dial is a nice blasted silvery grey. Close inspection shows kind of a matte dappled finish, which moves from white to silver depending on the light. And the 7 o'clock marker features the aesthetically pleasing little bonus. It is actually the authenticity indicator, Cartier text, which is a cool connecting feature between many of their watches. Sometimes it's at 10. There is no garish loom as one would expect, darling. You know I like a display case back, and we get one here, though it is rather understated, and actually it's a bit disappointing, and it's the only thing that I think is a bit disappointing with this watch. It's a thin movement and it's used in a bunch of other Cartiers, including the Tank XL. So it probably wasn't originally designed to be shown off. It's still welcome, but I think it could have been a bit fancier with the finishing. There is some Geneva striping and pink jewel action, but it's a bit meh. Ooh, who thought I would be describing anything Cartier as meh? I'm sorry, darling. I'm sorry, that wasn't very nice of me, darling. It's an all-round flat fat banger, really. Classic Cartier design, pleasing form and fitting function. The crown, I'm ashamed to say that I have referred to the cabochon crown as the blue crown nipple many times. You know, they have red, they have black, they have green, but I don't think they've made a purple nipple. I would like to see that. The crown is the only flourish, only real flourish on the run. And again, it's the design language that connects Cartier across the range. What can you say? It's just all very Chateauneuf du Pape. Moving on to the wrist with on-wrist experience. Yes. So dress watches are generally smaller, they're slimmer, so they might be seen to fit better by default, but it isn't always the case. Some have long lugs, some have unwieldy straps, so they can betray that kind of the slick package that it's supposed to be. This, however, doesn't do anything wrong. The Ronde is a joy for my skinny wrist in many ways. So the movement, which I should have covered previously, but it is the in-house MC 1847 movement. It is also used in a bunch of other Cartiers, including the Tank XL. So it's a very low-profile watch. It is, I think, 9.6 millimeters high, and it has a short lug to lug of 43 millimeters. It makes it a dream to wear, and it really does sit very well on the wrist. It looks quite big. It doesn't look like it's 43 lug to lug, but yeah, it's bang on. I suppose when you've got a lot of dial, you've got to make sure you don't overdo the case size, and they haven't. The other thing that is great about this watch for skinny wrists, and many Cartier watches feature it, is the strap that goes under. It fits back under the strap once it's secured, so there's no flappy bit hanging around as often. A skinny wrist, you can have a little bit of an end piece coming back round, which is very embarrassing. It's not very nice for us. How dare you wrist shame me? How dare you, darling? How could you? The clasp as well, it's got a lovely click to it. It feels reassuringly expensive. When I bought this, I didn't look at it from the perspective of a watch for the skinny wrist. So it really has worked out very well for me. So you can see that it's just a simple design feature, that you've got a 40 millimeter case. The lugs don't have to go out a mile for you to be able to fit a strap on it. The bezel, being reasonably thin, is at the end of the case, and it allows the lugs to start low if you space them wide enough, which at 20 millimeters on this case is totally fine. It's an elegant design for what is a large dress watch, really, compared to many others, and it makes it versatile and infinitely wearable. Other brands should take note, and they should get rid of those vampire teeth lugs. They're just not necessary. The watch did have a few scuffs on the bezel when I bought it. I was aware of them, and I was also aware of the fact that Cartiers are known to be quite prone to getting the odd scuff. But I guess that's part of the finish. They're all polished, and there's not much protection there, so I was aware, and I've definitely added my own few scuffs since having it, but they can be easily polished out, so I'm not that fussed about it, but it's something to keep an eye on. But just know that it shouldn't put you off, because polishing it is pretty straightforward, I think. Wearing this daily, I have been to the pub in a jeans and a t-shirt, I've been on windy walks, and I've been to weddings and other parties, and it's just a great watch to wear. It does get noticed. I have seen people slyly glance at it, and these aren't watch people, they are people who just recognize. In terms of wearing it, you can wear it with a smart casual outfit, jeans and a plain t-shirt to dress it down. I wouldn't wear it with trainers or joggers, but when you look nowadays on GQ and whatnot, you can see that everyone's wearing small watches, and they can get away with wearing them with joggers and Air Jordans because they're quite small and discreet. But with this, it's quite a big size, so you've got to be a bit more considerate and respectful of that design. I think we'll be going shopping soon, darling. We'll be doing a bit of shopping for straps on this one. Adding a bit of colour, maybe a bit of dark orange, a bit of burnt sienna maybe, darling. So this is a new thing that I thought up, the in-collection competition. So for those of us who have one too many watches, there's always an issue around getting wrist time. And then obviously there are certain bunches of watches, dive watches, automatics, a certain brand, Seikos. How do you spread out what you wear? What a first world problem this is. It's terribly stupid. But anyway, so for this, the competition in the watch box, I have a bunch of Chinese dress style watches, but they're just more casual by virtue of being Chinese, I think. Then it's prestige, and it's that kind of, they're not premium. The two that are the Longines Master Collection engraved dial and the Maison Celadon Imperial Plum. Now those two are beautiful watches, beautiful. I wear them, all three I wear a couple of times a month each maybe, and they are all very très bien. and a bit ooh la la mon ami in their own way. Each provides something a little different, and that's what watch collecting is about, darling. It's all about that. Any other premium dress watches I buy will have to be different enough as well. So it will be a bit of show part and a bit of Jaeger LeCoultre, darling. So the Maison Saladon is quite the opposite of the Cartier in terms of the guilloche on the dial and the markers and the logo, but it's still very classy in its own way. And obviously the Longines stands alone in its engraved stylings. It's just very cool. But the Longines has a very noisy rotor, which I will come to in its own review. I guess we can touch on quickly a few out of the collection competitors. There are quite a few using the same design language, nothing quite as nice or fancy as Cartier's design, but Raymond Weil do a quartz version of the Toccata, which has Roman numerals, and it has blued hands, and a date for £600. It is a quartz, but that is a good deal from a good brand. We have a couple of offerings from Longines. One is the Master Collection, similar to mine, but it has Roman numerals instead of engraved ones. Nice alternative to the white, blue hands and white dial, which Longines also offer in the Longines Record, which is a bit more classic, but it is £2,250. The Master Collection is £2,100. I'm sure you can get both of those a few £100s off. Finally, we have Frederic Constant Premier, which is a little bit different. It's got Breguet hands, but it's got the Roman numerals, and a nice classic dress watch design, but at £1,300, it's a good value proposition as well. However, none of them have really got what it takes to challenge Cartier in terms of prestige and icon status. Let's have a look at the value for money this provides. After all that, do I think this watch is a decent value proposition? The answer is yes, I do. A negative point is that in general, with a premium watch, by default, you're signaling your status. And this is an entry-level Cartier, and people might say, oh, an entry-level Cartier. Ugh. But f*** those fuckers. Yeah. Putain to those watch snob bastards. Okay, so Cartier are part of the Richemont group, but they maintain a presence in haute horology. It's a bit different. Some of the brands just don't dabble in crazy complications and such, but I love that Cartier do that. Their approach to watchmaking is that they will do whatever they feel like. They've got the staples, they've got the tanks and the Santos, and everything is there, but then they'll go and do some mad shit, which, like, a rotor is the movement, and the movement is the rotor. Also, the crown isn't a crown, so they do some mad shit like that. And you've just got to love that. Well, I do anyway. So other than that, which adds to the Cartier appeal for me, so what I get for £3,000 is a great looking piece with iconic design language, an in-house automatic movement that fits perfectly and makes me look like a grown-up. I am old, but I am quite immature, as you may have noted. But it makes me feel like a grown-up, and I can wear it around the world and signal to everybody that, darling, I'm a grown-up, darling, look at me, look at my Cartier, darling. Do you want to touch it? Do you want to touch my crown nipple, darling? So yeah, it makes me feel like a grown-up. Even if I can't afford the higher end pieces, I'm showing my support for them. And I know that's just me justifying my purchase. We watch fans, we buy watches for various reasons, and all of them mean something to us. We justify our purchases with very random points and arguments, but it all makes sense. And at one point, I even considered becoming a Cartier-only collector, but then I realised that I couldn't do that because I don't have thousands of millions of pounds to waste on stupid watches. Anyway, let's wrap this up. So, on to conclusions and final thoughts. Sorry, I've definitely overdone the darlings and that. But anyway, since 1904, Cartier have been doing their Cartier thing when they created the Cartier Santos, and it was the first modern watch designed to be worn on the wrist, I think for men, that is specifically. And now, 121 years later, they are catering to my wristy needs by creating a little beauty of a big watch. And at the end of the day, it really is a perfect dress watch for me. It just ticks all the boxes. In fact, though, it's more than a dress watch. I don't mean that like it's my life partner or anything. It's more than a dress watch in the sense that it is versatile. So the size allows it to be an everyday watch if you dress smart enough. And it kind of fills a gap for people who like dress watches but maybe don't want to wear them in the daytime because they are a bit too small and too dressy, too smart. It does a bit more than just dress watching, and that adds to the value for money for me as well. The only downside being the lack of pizzazz on the case back. I guess that's it. Everything else is just bang on. If it was any smaller, it wouldn't have the same impact. It wouldn't feel the same. If you want a small version of this, you can get the tank. And there are smaller, there's a 36, but it's not automatic, it's a quartz. And I do have an issue with spending this much money on a quartz watch if it's not an FP Journe. There has to be something more to it, or a spring drive. There has to be something a bit more horological to it if I'm going to spend that much money on a battery powered gizmo. In general, I'm very happy with this, and I will be looking to buy more Cartiers somehow in the future. But until then, I did purchase a Tank Solo for my sister to celebrate her promotion, and I got that from Hong Kong on a pretty good deal, actually. I'm just a nice guy like that. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and comment and tell me what you think of the Fat Tank. Have a bloody good one. Thanks again.